Yo guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be giving you guys my review, as you guys can see by the title, of none other than Morning Star by Pierce Brown. This is the final book of the Red Rising trilogy. Of course, there's 4 more books after that continuation, but the last book of the original trilogy. And give you guys my thoughts. Definitely going to be a spoiler review, so if you guys haven't read it, don't watch the rest of this video if you don't want to be spoiled. But I will say, if you haven't read these books yet, you definitely should. Yeah, I'm not going to go too much more into it. Just know, if you're a fan of sci-fi, and looking for a good, modern sci-fi, definitely go read it. But without further ado, let's get into it. So, starting off, I will say, this book, it had some pacing, not issues, but the pacing was a little bit different than the other ones, in my opinion. It was definitely more of a slow burn than the other two that I just wasn't expecting. Just scenes seemed to last a lot longer, and it felt like Darrow. There was probably a bit of there was character development for Darrow, where I felt like he stepped back and he thought about things more methodically, which made scenes slower. There was also there's a lot of characters just in general, but a lot of character development for different characters, which also made it last longer. But I think it's interesting. One of my favorite things about these books is Pierce Brown's prose. It's not like the craziest prose ever, that's super detailed. He always does these really quick sentences, and they feel really raw, and he uses a lot of words that are very harsh, and blunt, and it really reflects Darrow's way of thinking very well. And of course, it's Darrow telling us the story, so it makes a lot of sense. It's him in the moment explaining how he feels about stuff, and it's a lot of these short sentences. But in this book, it still has that, but again, I feel like it's a little bit muted, especially compared to the first and second books. His thoughts seem a lot more drawn out and thoughtful overall. So that's just something interesting that I noticed as I was reading it, is that it just seemed to take longer to read. And granted, it also is the largest book in the series so far, standing at about 500 pages, while the other one, I think the first one was about 400, and the second one I think was 430. Sounds about right. So it definitely is the longest one. But it feels like a lot of it was that character development and more thoughtful thinking on Darrow's part. Now, I'm going to get into some plot stuff, because the plot of this book is literally insane. Especially, after the end of the second book, I've raved on about it. Absolutely loved the end of the second book. It reminded me of the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones, or Song of Ice and Fire. You get it in Storm of Swords. It definitely had a lot of those vibes where you just don't see it coming at all. I mean, I guess you really should, but you don't see it coming at all. And everyone dies, and the plans and everything just go to crap, and you're wondering, where are they going to go from here? Because it changes the game completely. A lot of key figures die, and yeah, it just shakes things up. It's insane. But you're also left with a lot of uncertainty, because, spoiler alert, at the very end of the second book, Darrow's identity gets exposed to everybody. Everybody knows he's a Red. Virginia, or Mustang, is gone. You don't know where Severo's at. Ares is dead. What is going to happen? Not only that, but Augustus, Nero is dead as well, and the Jackal, he's risen to power. So there's a lot of just crazy stuff happening at the very end of that book that you're just not expecting. And going into this book, I was like, where are we gonna go? Um, but I think the beginning of this book was handled really well. It talks about like Darrow being imprisoned and tortured pretty much. Now he was like physically tortured, but a lot of it was psychological. And he talks about how he was basically trapped in a box, like a dark, like black box, and just lonely, nobody to talk to, just stuck with him and his thoughts, chained up for like maybe a year, like 9 months or something. That he's just in that box. He doesn't even get to eat or drink. He has like an IV to feed him his nutrients. So he's just miserable and just left in there. And we get to see like his internal struggles as he's in the box. He's reflecting on his whole life pretty much, but especially what's happened like with his family, um, you know, where everyone's at, if the rising is even still a thing. Um, we just don't know. But the first little sequence that we do get is like a jailbreak sequence, which I thought was awesome, especially because Darrow, he's been locked up, chained up, he's a bit rusty, pun not intended. Um, and I don't know, it's just a really fun sequence. Of course, it's definitely really dark. He's also trying to free Victra because she's also imprisoned. That whole sequence was just really cool. I liked that a lot. Now I am going to be skipping around a lot in this review, just because I don't want to like go through the entire book. I just want to key in on some specific parts that really stood out for me, so that this video isn't an hour long. So moving on, something I do want to touch on is the whole like obsidians sequence when they're on the ice or whatever. That was pretty cool. Did like that a lot, where they're fighting like the cannibal obsidians and stuff, and they're taking refuge. And like the little the little tag team duel that goes on. Well, R.I.P. Ragnar. That whole scene was insane, and of course we get introduced to Sephi. So that whole scene was really cool. Also demonstrates that Mustang is fully on the squad again, because she shoots Cassius in the face or the throat or whatever. He's got like an arrow in his throat. That was crazy. So dig that, because at that point in the story, I hate that dude Cassius, bro. Like after the second book, everything that goes down in there. Well, even at the first book, like you guys know, he leaves him for dead or whatever, betrays him. I just hated Cassius. I will say, and I'll touch on this in a little bit, Cassius does get a little bit of a character arc in this book. Well, I say a little bit. He gets a major character arc, which I also ended up really enjoying. But yeah, anyways, the whole scene on the ice is really cool. Again, pun not intended. Moving forward, we have the whole scene where they have the naval battle, where Darrow is his fleet against Roke, and he sneaks in and that whole thing. Personally, I thought Roke was pretty cool, and like not cool, but like I was cool with him. You know what I'm saying? In the first and second book, like that betrayal. I wasn't super emotionally attached to Roke, but I still like when Darrow at the beginning of Golden Sun hits him with the syringe and like knocks him out, because it was really supposed to be like a mercy, because that was a really good friend of his, and he didn't want to have to kill his friend, so he just decided to knock him out instead. That was really the turning point, and even Darrow at that point recognizes like things are not going to be the same after this, and lo and behold, the boy freaking betrays them all at the end of Golden Sun. And so, but Roke was still a homie. He really was, all throughout the first book into the second book there. And he was with Dara at the beginning of the second book when all seemed lost. So I definitely see the emotional effect that sequence could have. I just wasn't really feeling it. I was kind of glad that the dude died because he's kind of a douche. So yeah, but killed himself, whatever. That whole sequence though, where they're storming the ship and he uses like the claw drill or whatever, that was dope. So now at this point in the video, I'm definitely gonna slow it down a bit because I'm touching on the stuff that really stood out to me, and that is towards the end of the book. Everything from the scene where the Obsidians are having their little insurrection, trying to kill all the golds or whatever after Neril gets killed or whatever, all the way until the end of the book. So yeah, that whole scene with Sephi, and she's leading the Obsidians to basically go on a crusade on Dara's ships to kill everybody, almost ruining their entire plan. Their main goal was, I don't know if it was their main goal, but definitely one of their main targets. They were about to hang Cassius. And this is really a Severo moment. If you guys don't know, I'm sure everybody says this, but Severo is like my favorite character. He definitely had some of the most character development in this book. Especially we see the conflict between him and Darrow at the beginning. That was really spicy. That sounds kind of, never mind. The conflict between them two at the beginning of like the leadership role was very interesting, but that's quickly resolved. Severo is just a homie. He's been my favorite character for a while. He was reliable in the first book, but ever since he was able to basically, Darrow was able to come out as a red to Severo, and they share that bond, and then of course Fitchner being Ares and all that. Ever since all that stuff goes on and they're able to be open with each other, like I knew from that moment, like Severo was a homie. He's just my favorite character, and he's hilarious too. Regardless, he gets some major character development, and one of the biggest things is him being able to forgive Cassius, because of course Cassius killed his dad at the end of the second book. So yeah, that whole scene where Severo is basically gonna sacrifice himself for Cassius was pretty powerful. Like, that was the dude that killed his dad, and then later he explains, that killing him wasn't gonna bring his dad back, and he was able to forgive him. And Severo does the whole crazy thing where he hangs himself to prove a point, but he's still alive, and they cut him down. So yeah, that whole part, that was pretty powerful, which leads me into possibly my favorite part. I wouldn't say it's my absolute favorite part, but definitely a highlight for this third book, is the relationship between Severo and Victra. That wasn't something that I was expecting, but I absolutely love that for them, the more I thought about it, it was like they are absolutely perfect for each other, because they're both kind of bold and brutish and very angry. Well, I guess all of them are really angry, but you guys know what I mean. They just work really well, and of course they get married. That's one of the big things here at the end of the book. And I remember reading that sequence. I was reading my book in the morning at school, sitting in the cafeteria or whatever, reading it, and I probably looked like mentally ill or something to anybody watching, because I was just over there beaming, because I was just so happy. Reading about like how they did the whole bachelor party and kidnapped Severo from his bed or whatever. It was just very good to read, and in such a dark world, with such a dark plot, that little ray of sunshine. Definitely, the book definitely needed it, and it was better for it. What an amazing sequence, but of course, that scene is ruined by Adrius, the Jackal, which, hate that dude, but golly, is he one of the best villains that I have ever read. He is one sadistic dude, and he kind of reminds me of, like, almost like the Joker. I guess that's kind of the point. Jackal, you know, the whole kind of laughing and sadistic. That's kind of the whole point. But he also sort of reminds me of, like, I don't know, I just kind of pictured him as, like, Voss from Far Cry 3. Just that really, like, sarcastic and just, like I said a few times now, just sadistic villain that'll kill nearly anybody, and sometimes for fun, or to prove a point, you know. That's just how I imagined him in my head. And man, hate the guy, but he is a really good villain. He, of course, spoils the party by doing the whole thing. And now that I'm thinking about it, I can't remember what happened. Because before I was recording this video, I was thinking that the Obsidian insurrection thing happened because Neril got shot, and they saw that. But I don't think that was the cause. I think either I have my events mixed up or I'm just an idiot. But bear with me here. Either the Obsidian thing happened after, or the wedding happened after the Obsidian thing. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyways, after the whole party thing, we get... When I said that this book was an emotional roller coaster, I mean it 100%. Because, like I said, I probably looked mentally ill reading this book to anybody watching, with me just smiling the whole time while reading that wedding scene. And not but like a chapter or two later, we get the scene where Darrow is ready to free Cassius, you know? He's forgiven Cassius. Cassius is kind of cool with him again, you know? And I was feeling it. I was like, okay, you know, he's having a bit of a character arc here. I like it. So they free him. And of course, there's a little bit of foreshadowing as to what's actually going to happen. He hands him, like, the hollow cube or whatever when they meet earlier on in the book. It's never explicitly said what's on the hollow cube, so you're left wondering, and I suppose you're sort of meant to forget about that until it's brought up later on in the book. But that's a whole other thing. They're going to free Cassius, and, you know, he's saying his goodbyes to everybody, and he goes in to handshake Severo. You know, he killed his dad, so he's doesn't know really what to say, but is trying to make amends with Severo before they really probably never see each other again. Keep in mind, Severo just got married. My favorite character. No biggie. And, you know, they're shaking hands. And it states that, you know, the handshake goes on for way too long. And you don't just, like, write that out. You know what I mean? Like, it obviously, writing that out, it has a purpose. And so, me reading it, I was like, oh God. And so I continued reading. Cassius leans forward, grabs Severo's gun, puts him at gunpoint, tells everybody get down, and Darrow's like, bro, come on. And I'm the same way reading that scene. I've stated this hundreds of times. Not really, but I'm never somebody who, like, cries during a movie or a book or a show or whatever it may be. But what I do have, like, when a really emotional scene happens, is I have the face going, the jaw drop to the floor, speechless. That is me reading this scene right here. And especially what happens at the end. Cassius, this gold bastard, bang, 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 right in my homie's back, bro. He shoots him in the back like 6 times, killing him. my favorite character who just got married. Come on. Like, ah. Yeah, needless to say, I was a little bit emotionally distraught at that point reading the book. I was like, there ain't no way this really just happened. Like, and I was confused because I was like, something's not right here. Because I remember reading the description of one of the newer Red Rising books, and it mentioned Severo and Darrow going on a mission or something. And I was like, Severo can't be dead. Like, I was confused. I was like going through the 7 stages of grief. I was like, this can't be happening. Like, what? I was in denial, you know? And yeah, the whole scene carries out. It is ridiculous. Cassius betrays them. Virginia, I don't know why I keep calling her Virginia. I always call her Mustang, but for some reason I just want to call her Virginia today. Captures them and hands them off to the Jackal. This crazy part happens. Darrow, gets Luke Skywalkered. And what I mean by that, he gets his hand cut off with like a seared up sling blade or whatever, that he heated up and cut off his hand. So that was intense, I will say. And then they transport him in Mustang and Severo's body to Octavia, and that whole sequence is insane. About to get into it here. Strap in, y'all, because this is crazy. We learn throughout this that Darrow's fleet, his whole armada, is sailing into a trap that they don't know about. And Darrow can't warn them at all because he's captured. So literally everybody's gonna die. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, there's 4 more books in this series. What is about to happen? I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. Basically, Octavia, while his fleet is getting absolutely destroyed, she's going to execute him live on TV so that everybody sees, puts down all the insurrection across the galaxy. And what happens next blew my mind because she's about to kill him. And it's weird, to be honest. And I guess this is a slight issue I have the more I thought about it, and I'll get to it in a minute. But Darrow's basically like, here it is, I'm gonna die. And he starts howling on TV so that, for the howlers, woo woo. He's about to get murked by the Jackal. And Severo's gun that he has jams, and that was on purpose. It was put there because he knew that Adrius was gonna steal his gun or whatever. Cassius turns out he's actually still a homie. Turns around, kills a dude. Darrow's handcuffs or whatever get undone, and turns out it was all just a ruse. And I'm still left wondering, well, Cassius, he murked Severo, and they're all chill? Like, what's going on? And then, in a really roundabout way, we find out in the middle of this battle, they're fighting Aja, who's like this brute of a woman, just an absolute menace. They're like 3v1ing her and getting clapped. They need to bring Severo back into the mix. What happens is, and again, very roundabout way, is Darrow goes up to Severo's body. Turns out the bullet wounds and stuff was like a bulletproof vest that had like prosthetics on it. So he's not actually dead. He didn't get shot. So yeah, turns out Severo's not dead. And instead what happened was he took I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, but the Hamanthus oil, the flower. And that's what Darrow took at the very beginning of the first book to appear dead. Neril slipped it into his drink before he hung himself, or got hung. He didn't hang himself, but before he got hung, so that he would appear dead when he actually wasn't. And again, very roundabout way. I was not expecting that at all. And then Darrow gives him the pit viper poison, or whatever they call it. I don't know. I can't remember what they call it. Pit vipers are sunglasses. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, he gives him that stuff to wake him up and jolt him awake and feeling crunk. You know, he's all jacked up on Mountain Dew. And again, this is foreshadowed all the way at the beginning of this book, because that's also something that surname Holiday gives Darrow to like get him jacked up as they're trying to break out of prison. So then Severo enters the mix. They have this whole battle. They murk Octavia, which is dope. They bring down the Sovereign, and they're fighting Aja, and that's just an awesome battle scene. But the part that I don't understand is Darrow, right? If he's the one telling us the story, and he's the one that came up with that plan, then it doesn't make sense that he acts confused to us, the reader. Like, internally, he's confused, like, oh no, everything's going wrong, if he's the one that made the plan. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't add up. And it's not, in the way that I interpreted the book, maybe I'm wrong about this, but it doesn't seem like him telling his story to us. It seems like him, and maybe it is him telling us the story, and it seems like, you know, he tells us that to mislead us as like the plot direction thing, and I'm sure that was the intent of what the author, what Pierce Brown was doing. But the whole time, the verbs and stuff used, it seems like Darrow is telling us the story as it's happening. So it wouldn't make sense for him to be internally confused about what's happening when it is his own plan. I don't know. It just didn't add up in my mind. The whole time I was like, well, if you knew what was going to happen and you knew Severo wasn't dead, then why are you acting so sad and confused? Like, and I get that it's like an act, you know, he was trying to convince everybody around him, but internally, he's also acting that way when he shouldn't, you know. I know that I've basically said the same thing like 4 times now, but that was just something that I was struggling to understand. I didn't really get it. But that small detail was literally the only problem that I had with this book. You know, going even further into the ending, basically Mustang becomes the new Sovereign, which is cool. I mean, that's kind of crazy, y'all. There's the Jackal's final plan to make like a nuclear winter. That was intense. Defeated him or whatever. And then at the very end, turns out Darrow has a son. That was also really cool. And then the book's over. So, you know, the other thing are just kind of minor details that I figured I'd touch on, but I really just wanted to touch on and review like this last part of the book here. That's the parts that like really stood out to me. Was everything, like I said, from the whole Obsidian insurrection where they're trying to hang Cassius all the way until that final battle. So yeah, that's going to be about it for my review, honestly. I gave it a 5 out of 5. I still like Golden Sun more. I don't know. I just feel like Golden Sun seemed more desperate, and it was a little bit grittier and darker. Not to say that this isn't, because this series as a whole is very dark. But for some reason, Golden Sun just hit different. And the ending of Golden Sun, you know, like this book right here, Morning Star, fantastic ending. I think it ended perfectly. It's obviously leaves a lot of interpretation for what's to come, but also if you don't want to read the second series, it doesn't really create an immediate necessity to do so. You could read these first three books in the trilogy and it'd be wrapped up nicely, but it leaves enough not tied up neatly to give incentive to read the next portion of the story, which I do like. You have the option. But going back to what I was saying, though, although that this is wrapped up perfectly, in my opinion, the ending of Golden Sun definitely stuck with me. Uh, I just like Golden Sun more. It is an awesome book. All of these are really good. Needless to say, I think that the first book is the weakest. But Golden Sun and Morning Star are some of my favorite books that I've read recently. Um, yeah, Red Rising is one of my new favorite series. Like, easy. Anyways, guys, that's going to be about it. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, because I would greatly appreciate it. If you guys want to talk more about the book, let me know in the comments. But also, if you do want to go more in depth with it, definitely join the Discord server in the description below. We'd love to have you talk about some books and all that. It'd be really dope. So, yeah. And so, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.